Well, thank you for joining me on another episode of A Dose of Reveal. I have a, I always say everybody's a special guest. To me, you were special in a sense of we used to be former co-workers. During that time, too, we had a good time.
Had a grand old time.
Uh-huh. And it was I would say, to be such a young age, it was a very uh, special learning experience.
Hmm.
I could take it from that, definitely. I want you to introduce yourself. Let's just get right into it. Introduce yourself.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Martine Laventure. I am a licensed social worker here in Long Island, New York, primarily working with children, young adults, and mostly sometimes older adults, depending on the situation, in the school setting as well as in an adolescent homeless shelter and per diem therapist.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining me today. So, we're going to be talking about autism, and we're
Mhm.
also going to be talking about diversity and inclusion, which I think on a higher scale with that, that is something that's not talked about a lot, and it really holds a special place, of course, to only people that consider that they're actually going through it or that they are part of it. So this
Absolutely.
is so this is a good conversation that we're gonna have today. So what to explain, you know, diagnosis as a whole? What is autism?
So, autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder that impacts an individual's ability to socialize, communicate, their behaviors, processing sensories. It's a disability that's caused by differences in a person's brain. And when we say a spectrum, it really is a spectrum because you can have an individual who is severely autistic, or you can have somebody who's considered high functioning autistic. Autism is not something that's written on somebody's face. You can't walk around and go, oh, there goes the ASD kid, or
Mm.
in a big sign. It's something that is impacting them developmentally.
So what are the signs? Because as you said too, the different levels of the spectrum and whatever the diagnosis would be with the disorder. What are some of the early signs that you are able to identify that someone may have autism?
You could identify some of these signs as early as infancy up to 3 or beyond. I mean, we are witnessing a lot lately adults who are getting diagnosed late. So some of the signs are inability to maintain eye contact, repetitive behaviors, such as hand flapping, rocking back and forth. Some of these are known as stimming behaviors. Difficulty in understanding emotions, understanding social cues, regulating someone's emotions, difficulty in transition. So, going from one preferred activity to the next. It could be a hyper focus on a certain topic, object, toy, difficulty forming and maintaining relationships. These are all signs of autism.
So before we get into the next question, I want to ask you in regards to that and just the testing and looking at the early detection of this type of diagnosis. Do you know anything about or have reviewed any research where is this something that a person is born with, or is this something that could possibly develop over time? There's so many separate sections of that, of either a person could possibly be
Mhm.
born with it, is something that's developed. I even heard sometimes parents concerned with the vaccines. So with the research and things that you studied in regards to this, what is your take on some of those things?
So my take on autism, it is something that you're born with. If you think about when, as a parent, right, when you have your child and you bring them to the doctor's office, it's always asking you where are they and meeting their milestones, right? We're talking about walking, talking, toileting, all of these things. Like where are they with that? Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it could be just a simple delay. It could just be that the child just is not ready to talk. They have things to say, but they don't want to, right? But it
Right.
becomes an issue of concern when it impacts their day to day. So if they truly are nonverbal or have speech delays, then you take them to a specialist for further evaluation. If it's an issue of regulating their emotions, once again, you're taking for further evaluation. So it's not something that happens later on. So like even when I mentioned that we have some adults who are getting diagnosed later on in age, it's because they've learned to cope, right? They learn how to manage things their way, but along their way they struggle. So like the
Mm-hmm.
of maintaining and forming relationships, that has been a point of immediate struggle for them. But they
Mm-hmm.
just like that's just my personality, or they've been dubbed like, oh, you just have a bad personality. Or if we're talking about culturally, right? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's Martine's kid. They're just a little slow. They're a little special, right? Like things like that has been said, so people aren't really truly looking at it as a developmental disability. They're just looking at, oh, that's just that person, and not realizing that they need that support.
Okay, thank you for that. Um, what what was it that made you become a autism advocate?
So I've been honored to be in the life of my baby. He just turned 18 last month.
Oh
Um,
wow,
is on the
adult.
his senior year in high school, but
Mhm.
the spectrum. And I've gotten plenty of times like, you sure he on the spectrum? Or people joke around, I think he could turn that on and off. No, he can't. I notice his struggles. He initially was thought to be nonverbal, but through intense speech therapy, work at home, because it's not just taking him to a specialist, is what you're doing at home also. He was able to start forming sentences here and there, and now he just won't stop talking. He loves to talk. But, not taking for granted, it actually took somebody else when we were like in the height of struggling, when he mainstreamed into gen ed school. Constant phone calls, he had to be picked up, he was being sent home early or not included in certain things. That, you're in the field, Martine. What if this case came across your desk and he had the same profile? Like, what would you look into it? And I had to think about, yeah, he struggled. He was nonverbal. He couldn't communicate his feelings, his upsets. And as his family, we were used to his nonverbal cues. In a full classroom setting, not everybody's going to be able to pick up on that. And so I take me being in this field as a badge of honor, because that's how I've been able to help and support my child to get to where he is right now. The services that he has, whether it's through OPWDD, whether it's in
Mm.
school, getting him his IEP, the correct IEP, making sure he was in the right classroom setting. So being an advocate started with being an advocate for my son and being his voice, but also teaching other parents how to be that same advocate without having that dual hat of being a social worker as well, because even if you don't have that hat, doesn't mean that you can't fight for your child either.
Right. Well, thank you. So thank you and congratulations with that. And that actually just segue into the next question that I had. Do you think children with autism should only be in classes with other children with special needs, or do you think that the classroom can be designed where there is a mix?
Absolutely. I work in a school full time, so those settings are called inclusion settings. So it's a mix between children who have IEPs and children who are considered to be gen ed kids. I
Mm,
think it's a benefit for all children altogether, whether you have an IEP, a disability, or not. I think it teaches all children how to be patient, how to be empathetic to other people. Because, like
mm,
students, you walk in this building, it's not just about the math, the science, the social studies. We're teaching you how to be people. And how to be people is how to be respectful to people with different abilities, different economical statuses, like all together. So as far as having a child who's on the spectrum, it's not about intelligence. So sometimes it really is about learning those social skills. So they just may have an IEP, just directly going on how to socialize with others. How can they socialize with others? They're not in the mix of other children, right? So putting them in a smaller classroom, what benefit would that have for them if that's not their need? So each individual has a different need. So we have to make sure that the setting that they're in is just as flexible. Every child needs a flexible setting and a flexible teacher and environment. because I could be having a bad day and I need somebody who understands that, you know what, let's put that math work away. Won't you go get a drink of water? Won't you go down the sensory hallway? It's not just for somebody on the spectrum or who have ADHD. Go take a break. We're teaching you how to take a self-care at an early age. So mixing up with children, it's necessary. And I think it starts in the school building. And then that way, in other settings, you know how to be with other people.
Okay. So with the support, and I think maybe once you leave the doctor sometimes, there's not a lot of information that's given to you. There, like once your child is diagnosed, I believe it depends on where you go. You're not handed a booklet on, okay, these are the things that you should follow up with. But what are the elements that can be added in order to support a child with autism? So I know some of the things you said was, having a certain plan put together when it comes to schooling and things like that. But within the school and outside of the school, what other elements, or just like if you have a list of what can be done to support?
All right, so we could start off with if it's an issue about regulating their emotions, therapy or a behavioralist, right? Get in contact with that. Start off with your provider. Your doctor's job is to work for you. When you come in, you say, "This is what I need," and don't be afraid to say, "This is what I need." If you need a referral, get that referral from the doctor. If we're talking about assistance in an academic setting, then speak to who you need to. Start off with the classroom teacher. You should always be in communication with your classroom teacher and say, "These are my concerns," or ask the teacher, "Are there any concerns that you're noticing? Because at home, he or she is doing this. I want to know, is it the same thing out at school?" Collect that data. So if the teacher is saying these are the struggles, okay, so then what's the next step? Find out if the school has like a building level team, right? Where it's the teacher, the psychologist, the social worker, the building principal, where they could come up together and come up with some support for your child. And if beyond those supports, if something is needed more, then all right, the conversation needs to be, all right, my child needs to be evaluated. Who does the evaluation? Is it the school? Is it an outside provider? So if it's academically, then yes, the school is obligated to do that evaluation. If it's something even more, then you are having every right to ask for referrals because your mental health staff at the school has access to referrals also. Get those referrals, speak to who you need to, speak to your insurance to see what's covered, what's not covered. Unfortunately, some of the evaluations do have an out of pocket cost, but try to figure out and ask questions. There's something that the school probably be willing to assist with, but you have to be willing to ask those questions and not be afraid, and also be able to remove the you out of the situation in order to get the supports that that child needs. Again, whether it's an IEP, which is an individualized educational plan, a 504, which is another legal medical document to get accommodations. It could be that the child needs a one-to-one or a para, right? My son had a para from preschool up until when we went out for COVID. So he was in seventh grade. So until he was in seventh grade, now he's in high school. He's no longer in an inclusion setting. He no longer needs a para. He's navigating by himself. So even though the supports that your child may have when they were younger, things change over time. So be willing to be flexible and noticing that your child could do more or may need more.
So I know a whole nother conversation would be definitely what life, we don't have to talk about this now. This could be a whole nother segment, but it's interesting to see what life would be having autism and being done with school. Like you graduated, it's like, what's next? That's a whole nother conversation.
It's a whole nother conversation that I am learning right now, but it is a life. My kid is going to college. He's going to Adelphi. We have a scholarship, so it is a life out there.
Okay, so let's get into the diversity and inclusion, right? So what is diversity and inclusion? What is that?
So diversity is the differences between everybody, right? Whether it's by race, ethnicity, whether it's financially, by gender, that is diversity. Equity is making sure that we are given the same opportunities, right? And inclusion, just because it says that an education is supposed to be provided to everybody, or you're supposed to have this and I'm supposed, does not mean that it's happening. So making sure there are policies to ensure that all the things that said to be happening is happening. So that's why DEI was created, just to make sure that the powers be to know everything that you said you was going to do, you're doing it.
Do you think that this is something similar to affirmative action?
It's it's a baby of affirmative action, right? Because
Okay.
again, if we think about it, affirmative action has been around since the 60s, and here it is in 2025. We know what happened with the Supreme Court, but before that Supreme Court decision, was it truly being followed? No, it wasn't. Right? Because then we have the issue like, well, I hired that one person of color, or we have a woman on staff, so I checked it off. So that means everybody else afterwards could be to my own liking and preference.
Right, right.
We have that one black person on staff, so look
We're
it up.
covered.
That, like, that tokenism, like, there goes our token black person, let's go to them, we got you on staff. That's why when you go on the website, there goes that token black person in the pamphlets. Or if we have a black investor, let's go get Martine to come out there and shake those hands. But we check that off.
Oh man. So what are some of the places that you know that DI is lacking, and why the reason this even was developed? Because there had to be places from 1 to 3 that this is lacking, and a part of the reason why this needed to be created.
In the educational spaces, for one, right? We're talking about not just the students, we're talking about staff. I mean, we recently in my building just did a survey, just because we're doing a cultural cookbook, me and my community service kids. So we needed some demographic information, and just really to look at the numbers of the students of color, students with disabilities versus staff. It doesn't even equate. To be able to say, like, I could see myself in somebody else, that's not
Mm,
at all. So definitely in an education setting, places of employment, the hiring process is hard. There's been plenty of times where you heard that people have faked their names on their resumes to try to see if they could actually get that interview, versus the Jeremys and the Jaquans, right? We
mm-hmm.
that and politics, right? The people who are supposed to be representing our best interests. Does it reflect who I am culturally? Does it reflect who I am as a person and things like that? That's where it's lacking, and we're not seeing it happening more and more. And unfortunately, now it's being utilized as a point to say, like, the only reason why people have moved forward in their careers path is because of quote unquote DEI. But it's not.
Mm,
You're trying to say, because of my race, I no longer have all of these educational backgrounds, the qualification, the years of what I've been doing. No, it doesn't
right.
have that. But it's letting you know that you have been deliberately shunning my application, or shunning people who look like me, whether it's my gender or my race,
Mm-hmm.
for
And it's just I feel like sometimes it's just not equal treatment as well.
it is
Mhm.
not.
What are some of the benefits as well as the challenges with creating something like this and using it in some of these employment spaces?
I want to start off with the challenges. I think the challenges start off with what I said before. You kind of get people who just want to do those checkoffs, right? Just to say, well, I let one in, so that doesn't mean I have to let a whole bunch in, which
Hmm.
is fair. Or having that one individual feel isolated because they are that one, right? And all that pressure on their back for being that one. If I mess up, would it really be the reason why nobody else that looks like me gets hired, right? Then you have pressure. Or it could be a reason why people look at you and say, like, I know why they're here, right? So that does something to your soul, to your morality. Would you be willing to work for this agency, this company, or be in this educational institution for that reason, right? But the benefit of all it is making people aware that I'm here, right? There are things that need
Hmm.
to be done. If we're talking about somebody with a disability, right? I'm in a wheelchair. How am I supposed to access to get in the building? Right? I'm qualified. I need to be able to work, but what are you doing to accommodate me? Right? Even think about some places of employment that has like a room for nursing mothers. That's inclusion. That's being accommodating.
And then the benefits. That was a part of the benefits, is having those
That's
things in
yeah,
place.
that's definitely because when we're talking about being I could be welcomed into a place doesn't mean that I'm affirmed. There's a difference, right? Because you could say, "Hey, Martine, come through." I'll come, right? But there's nothing in the space that's affirming who I am as an individual. Because then, what type of culture are you saying that your institution is?
Absolutely. Okay. So, how do you feel about the positive impact of DEI? Has some of the changes that are happening now that we've been hearing for the past couple of weeks?
I could say like for certain places, like if we're talking about in the retail spaces, right, it's giving small businesses of people of color, women, chances to actually get their businesses out there and put in big chain stores, right? Like the Target, the Walmarts, and they hopped on this DEI thing right after 2020. And so financially, it definitely made an impact in the community, right? Because once again, I know I'm welcomed in this store. I know I could get some things, but now I could go into that aisle and actually get products that fits for my skin, fit for my hair texture, where it wasn't so much before. Um, so just to see how, again, I think financially the impact has made a huge difference, or even inspiring younger kids to go for different opportunities that they didn't think they were capable of before because they saw somebody with their similar situation, whether it's a disability, whether it's by gender, whether it's by race or ethnicity. So I think that was one of the major benefits because it inspired other people to think that I could do this too.
So the second part of that is what I was talking about, these things where now some of the we talk not I'm not sure if it was more than one store, but they did talk
Hmm.
about Target
Hmm.
and how they were going to remove from some of the products. What do you think that's about? It
Propaganda.
was something that was started to help,
It was
but now
definitely
you're taking away something. What do you think that's about?
because this is the point again. Like, I welcomed you in here, but I really wasn't trying to have you here to begin with. But I also saw the financial benefit on both parts. Like we got more customers to come our way. Like even right now, if I was to go on social media, right, look at all the influencers of colors. They're like, oh look, I got the new Tabitha Brown outfit on, or whomever. So that's getting more people of color to go shop at Target, or
Mm,
creating a new hair product, right? Oh, so I don't have to just go to the beauty supply store. So when I go on my Target run, I could go quickly pick that up now too. So
mm.
that's a benefit. But now I don't have to. I'm not going to. And that's the message I got from Target.
Okay, well, thank you so much for the conversation today. Review with some people where they can find you. Of course, all your information is going to be on the website. Where people can find you, as well as with your own business. What are some of the services that you provide?
So I could be found on Instagram. It's Laventure CSLLC. It's also the same for my Gmail if you want to send me a quick email, which is laventurecsllc@gmail.com. I created the Venture Consulting Services back in April of 2024 because I realized I have been very fortunate to be in this field now 15 years, and there are a lot of families and children that I've helped along the way, as well as incoming practitioners, agencies. I've done training, so I wanted to be able to do it on a larger scale, not just here in Nassau County. I wanted to be able to spread my reach and to assist other people. So, my consulting firm, I am doing workshops for agencies. I've done consulting with parents on how to advocate for their children in school settings. I've worked with incoming practitioners in the field while they're in school, helping them formulate theses, analysis, and things like that. I'm also in the process of writing a children's book series explaining what autism is to children, to have them have more patience with children who may not understand things the way they do. So why not put that in a children's book? And it makes more sense that way. My son is the main character. So that way I am also teaching him how to have some income out here on his own. So those are the things that I am doing. And like I said, you can reach me on Instagram, via email, and I am here. And look out for the website also. It's coming soon.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the conversation. Congratulations on everything that you're doing now and the things that you're trying to put in place for the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.